One more moment. I just need let's see, one more little guy right there. Mr. Long, you're all set.
Thank you, Seth. Good evening, everybody. I'd like to call the March 14th, 2022 Scituate School Committee meeting to order. This meeting will be recorded and posted following the meeting. Public comment will be available through Zoom, and community members can also email me at mlong@cit.org with any questions or comments up to the meeting. So call the meeting to order. We'll do a roll call vote. Long, yes. Ms. Lindblom?
Yes.
Dr. Borkowski?
Yes.
Mr. Gates?
Yes.
Yeah.
And Ms. Brandolini?
Nicole, can we just hear you real quick to make sure you sound okay? Yeah, bottom left hand corner. You got it.
Yes. Sorry, my headphones.
No problem. So the first item on our agenda tonight is celebrating student success with the science department.
Mr. Newton, you should be able to unmute yourself. Yeah.
I think I'm there. All right. So good evening, everyone. I'm Patrick Newton, Department Chair for grades 6 through 12 Science and Engineering, and super happy to be here to celebrate what we do. Last year, or last spring, when I got to come do this, we focused almost exclusively on gates. And so this year, I would like to focus on the high school. And you see, I have my active learning. I'm hoping people are seeing this now.
We see it. We see it.
Yes.
It's like the obligatory make sure Zoom is working. So one of my big pushes is that science is a process, it's a practice, and it's something that we do. It's not just something that we study. So really all I'm going to do is flip through a bunch of photos of students doing science at Scituate High School. And we hit a bunch of different courses, a bunch of different activities. And it's really worth pointing out all of these pictures were taken in the last 2 weeks. So this is all stuff that's going on at Scituate High School all the time. These are some of our AP biology students involved in what's actually a pretty typical AP biology lab, but it's super cool. When I used to teach AP bio, this was like one of my favorite things ever to do. We actually get bacteria to adapt genes from other species, and we use it to model antibiotic resistance and how that may spread through a population. But you use markers of glow-in-the-dark genes from jellyfish, so we actually make glow-in-the-dark bacteria, which is really, really cool. But kids get exposed to tons of lab equipment and tools and techniques and stuff that they don't really get to see until this level. A lot of aseptic technique, a lot of just real meaningful lab skills that get developed through there. And then we'll jump to physics. And in this case, we've got a lot of track things going on, but on the left-hand side, we've got the roller coaster track. There's a adjustable height, so they can different amounts of potential energy. And then you can see photo gates, which are little black devices, look like clamps on the side that measure the velocity of the marble, in the case of the photo on the left, as it goes by. And so they can look at the conversion from potential energy to kinetic energy and play with the variable of the height to kind of compare. And on the right, we deal with conservation of momentum. Little toy cars ride along the track propelled by an elastic band. Again, photo gates measure their speed. They actually collide. And by measuring their speed, we can measure, or students can determine, the momentum involved. So again, we're doing science. Here we are with AP Physics, and I particularly love the overdramatic slow-mo of these, but this is the good old-fashioned egg drop that people have been doing kind of forever. And so on the left, we have Mr. Gross, one of our high school physics teachers, kind of hiding behind the wall of not wanting to get splashed with egg yolk as this thing falls. Of course, it's going to be slow to load here now. but super dramatic, that one being very successful. And then another member of the class being considerably less successful on the right-hand side. Again, over dramatic slow motion. And it is hard to see, but you can see little pieces of eggshell kind of go flying. And there's, you know, some cleanup there that has to be done in the main foyer of Scituate High School, but we get there eventually. Now it just wants to play. All right, on chemistry, again, kind of going through all the disciplines. This is an inquiry-based lab, which is one of my personal favorite things. So we just present students with a problem and they have to solve it. They have to take their learning and figure out how to get there. So this is not one of those labs where we hand them a procedure and they just at the end get the result we want. So we come up with a scenario where they've just been hired as a lab manager. The previous lab manager was not very good at their job, and so all of their stuff is unlabeled. We know what two of the things are, which are salt and sugar. We also give them a third substance, which is Alkanox, which is just a detergent, like a dish detergent. And the students have to apply their knowledge and understanding of the properties of different compounds and ionic versus covalent substances to identify scientifically, gather the evidence to argue which substance is which. Everyone loves our ornithology classes. We get outside and look at all kinds of birds and different habitats. I was outside on campus with an ornithology class for a little bit today. Beautiful red-tailed hawk flying right over Gates building, actually. But one of the cool things that this class does is meet off-site. So when they meet as either the first block of the day or the last block of the day, they can meet somewhere off campus so they can see some different environments and some different habitats down in the harbor, by the lighthouse, or of course, many days just right on campus. Our engineering class is doing all kinds of different things. On the right-hand side, we're working on scale drawings, but also with perspective. So these ideas of renderings of designs. On the left-hand side, and this one's a little bit cooler when they get further along, which of course they are now. They weren't when I took the picture. We give them a standard boat hull that we've 3D printed, and they run some tests, but they're basically tasked with designing a better boat hull. So then they design and 3D print and test their own boat hulls, and if needed, redesign, re-3D print, go through the iterative process of engineering. Biology's always got stuff going on. I, of course, was a biology teacher, so this is my favorite. Our 9th grade students modeling the process of meiosis, and then that carries directly into genetics. In this case, students using watercolors to actually paint what flowers may look like under different genetic scenarios. Our environmental science classes do all kinds of things. So in like very recent time, they've designed these houses, which they've made out of recycled materials for the most part. You can see the Doritos box on one of them. The idea here is to design them to be as thermo-insulative as possible and to test different forms of insulation. The poster that you're seeing is different groups were assigned or chose to research benefits and drawbacks of various ways to produce energy, and had to basically give a sales pitch to staff members playing the role of municipal government that may or may not be investing in these power generation methods. And then another one of our favorites, we get to get into some chemistry and actually compare a bunch of different fruits and veggies to determine which ones would make the best batteries, but we get to really get into some of the chemistry of how and why these things do produce electricity when you jab the right metals into them. Anatomy class is doing all kinds of good stuff. The photo that you can't really tell what it is with a student with a red sweatshirt on her arm there. They're testing reaction time. So they're just holding a ruler, and it's one of those, your friend drops it and you see how quick you can grab it. At another station in that class, they're really diving into a bunch of photos of tissue samples, photos from under microscopes to look and relate structure to function. How and why does this work the way that it works? Well, let's look at how it's actually put together. Astronomy, Again, all kinds of fun stuff. This takes all semester, but they actually track the sun angle. So if the time change really messes them up because they have to take this measurement at the same time of day every day. And it's no longer the same time, so it messes them up, but we get there anyway. Using a meter stick to measure the length of the shadow, and then a little bit of trig and some other math to make it work that we can calculate the angle. And in our forensic science class, we just finished a lab on impressions evidence. So the ability to make plaster casts of things like footprints, which is what that top right is supposed to be, a footprint in dirt. In the story that we followed, someone had made an imprint of a key, so that's why you see that in the top left. The middle is actually impressions of rope that may be used as a binding in, it's actually modeling clay. And at the bottom is a tire track, and I really need to remember to put the tire back on my bike, but it got us there. And that's the sort of whip around, for lack of a better term, the high school science department right now. And we continue to push that, again, science is a practice, science is a skill, and it is something that we do, it is active.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Mr. Newton. That was a great presentation. It's great to see how much time the kids are actually using projects and moving around and applying science as opposed to someone sitting there at the front of the classroom and reading out of a book. So that's what you provided tonight was a great example of how our students are learning.
Great. Thank you.
Are there any questions from the committee for Mr. Newton?
I did want to quickly add a couple of other things that are great that are kind of ongoing. Our robotics team is getting ready. They're in the final stretch. They have their first competition in a little less than 2 weeks now. Would have been 2 weeks from this past weekend, with another one the week after. So we're excited for that. Again, students doing science and engineering. And we made a lot of progress towards Scituate's triumphant return to a science fair. Cassie Tebow, high school chemistry teacher, worked really hard. Through an unfortunate series of events, we weren't able to actually participate this year, but now we've got the groundwork laid and we're ready to go for next year. So we're really looking forward to that too.
Awesome. That's great to hear. And if there's no questions from the committee, Mr. Newton, again, thank you for coming tonight and sharing that presentation. That was a great insight into what our students are doing in the science department.
All right. Well, thank you for the opportunity.
Anytime. So next on the agenda, we have our student advisors report. So I'll turn it over to Ms. Reese and Mr. Kinsley if he's on.
Johnny has basketball practice tonight, which I can just jump right into that. The basketball team has been doing excellently in their playoffs. So Johnny's an important player. He's got to be at practice. I don't blame him for not being here. They're in the Final Four and they're playing against Malden Catholic this Wednesday at Taunton High School. So that'll be exciting. There've been big crowds at all the games, except for maybe Leominster. But it's been super exciting. Boys hockey is also in the Final Four, which is great. It's super exciting. Our sports teams this year have been incredibly successful. They're playing at the Gallo tomorrow at 5:15. And they're playing Hanover. Before I get into the rest of it, I just want to say shout out to Mr. Newton because I've loved all of my science courses at the high school. I found them to be challenging and engaging, and I've taken bio and chem and physics, and I'm taking anatomy this year, and they're great courses. And I'm not into science. I'm not going to study science in college, but I've just really liked science classes in general. Alrighty, next week on March 18th, Amnesty International is holding their annual Human Rights Day. Generally, they invite classes to the library to be introduced to human rights issues around the world and encourage others to get involved. This year, the majority of the work will be around how to help Ukraine and to identify human rights abuses going on there. And the club would like to ask you all, as part of the committee, what can we do as residents to Scituate to help? Let's see. Scituate High School in Gates hosted the Massachusetts Southeastern Junior District Music Festival event this past weekend, which was fantastically just labeled music event at the high school. I thought that was so funny. Over 400 students in grades 7 through 9 from 70 districts practicing Friday and Saturday participated in 2 concerts on Saturday. Students must audition for their placement in the festival for honors band, honors band, orchestra, choirs, or jazz band. Aubrey Brennan, Grace Dre, Hannah Dwyer, Cece Gagnon, Kelsey Motter, Linda Murdoch, and Ginger Stone all participated from the high school in vocal. Soren Johnson participated in jazz band, and Noah Shepard participated in winds and percussion. Both concerts were excellent and such a great collaboration for SHS. Math team finished in their second in the season overall in their division. All the mathletes did a great job this year. GSA held a walkout on Friday to protest anti-gay and anti-trans legislation in some of the southern states and western states, and to act as allies to all the LGBTQIA friends and family. Almost 200 students and staff participated, and on a personal note, I went to it. It was incredibly impactful and just such a loving experience to hear from peers and teachers about real things, and it was very uplifting. I really enjoyed that. At the high school, AP Lang classes recently hosted guest instructors from Math Insight, our AP Development Grant partner, to deepen student understanding of rhetorical analysis and synthesis essays. The World Language and Science departments are excited about next year's trip to the Galapagos, which my brother is going on and he's super excited about. Students are currently signing up, and the turnout is impressive so far, with 18 confirmed students already registered. A&B is holding ongoing open circle meetings where all students can participate. We're planning for a school-wide art installation reflecting students' values and acceptance in the school. They're preparing for a faculty facilitation of our A&B program and for the Anti-Defamation League to come and present to our club and our club leaders to reteach us on how to be good facilitators. And I say us because I'm in that club and I absolutely love it. Students in world language classes are currently learning about the Seal of Biliteracy opportunity and are about to take part in the proficiency testing for this award. And the tests will be at the end of April if anyone has students who are interested. And that's all I have for you today. That's the high school.
All right, thanks for that update, Ms. Reese. And one other thing you didn't mention, but I attended and I thought the students did a great job, is the curriculum night for the 8th graders coming to the high school. It was a lot of great feedback from the students there and the experiences that they had going from being an 8th grader up to being a junior or senior. I think what most of the kids were, but it was a great job done by those students as well, as I know you were a part of that as well.
I'm glad you've heard that. I always found that as a freshman that those nights and hearing from peers was always important. So I'm glad we could do that for them.
Are there any questions for Ms. Reese on her update tonight? All right, well, thank you for providing that very detailed presentation. You and Johnny have always done a great job of letting us know what's going on in the high school, and it's well appreciated.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
I just want to make a comment that it's nice that every 2 weeks, I feel like your list grows of things and activities and events and clubs and everything. And it's just so awesome that it feels so like active, and everyone's just doing so much more now. So I think it's nice. It's really good to see and have your reports be growing longer and longer and longer so we can hear all the things you're all up to, which is awesome.
It is. There's a big, fantastic change from this year to last year. I remember last year kind of being like, yeah, and this group was planning to do this, but we're not really sure about it, or it got canceled, COVID spiked up again. And this year it's just so fantastic. And like the predictions from the earlier beginning of the year, students are just still so excited to be back. And I know as a senior, with all of our senior events coming up, everyone's super excited and enthusiastic. And I feel like there's just so much bonding going on. And I love it. It's fantastic. And thank you for that.
And you don't realize you miss it, but I think this is our 3rd or 4th meeting in a row that we're going to have a field trip request come up. So it's just great to see us getting back into the swing of things and being a normal school year for our kids. So I'm glad students are appreciating it as well. So next up, we have a presentation for the state of one of our schools. Tonight is Cushing Elementary School. So I'll turn it over to Principal Moffett.
Thank you, Mr. Long. I appreciate it, and thank you, everybody. I'm going to be toggling back and forth because I have my notes on one computer and then I'm going to present here on the other. So bear with me. Let's see, where are we at? Here we go. Awesome. So thank you for allowing me the opportunity to be able to share Cushing's State of the Schools. What will be presented to you tonight is the end result of the input, collaboration, and the effort of everyone at Cushing School. It's our dedicated and committed staff, our curriculum coordinators, our families, and our students. All of this has been made possible because of all of them and all of their hard work. We're all working together to bring the best educational experiences possible to our students. Despite the challenges that the masks, mandates, COVID have presented this year, Cushing School has continued to uphold a culture of excellence, collaboration, and personalization. It has been important to have all students continue to participate in full day in-person learning this year, even when we had a few uptick in cases around the holiday season. We've been able to learn together, work together, and celebrate the success as a school, and as a community in these past year, which has been really wonderful for us. So a little bit of overview on just our pillars and what we're looking at here at Cushing. Collaboration, really, we've overcome the impact of the pandemic. We recognized that there were some challenges for us when we were back in September. At the beginning of the school year, it was evident that our students were feeling the impact of the pandemic socially and emotionally. So they weren't ready to be students right away in the traditional sense. So the first 6 weeks of school, we were spent really building community, forging new peer-to-peer relationships, and reconnecting with previous friends. We slowed down the pacing of our academic curriculum and increased the use of the social emotional curriculum, such as Open Circle, Calm Classroom. Children grew in appropriate behaviors and in peer-to-peer interactions. They started to work really well collaboratively, and we did a lot of independent and collaborative work. And within a couple of months, it was evidence that kids had the self-regulation they needed. It was more prevalent in the school, and they were really ready to take ownership of their learning and be problem solvers. So it really paid off for us in the long run. We've also talked about student achievement. We got to a point where our kids were ready, so we really started to talk about how can we help our students achieve. We measured it in so many different ways. There were some formal and informal assessments from everyday classwork. We were teaching them, to work to the best of their ability and to their potential. For some students, it may have been a spelling test. For other students, it may be a piece of art, but we were really celebrating all of the successes that our students were having as they achieved going forward. A lot of them really had some great social growth. They were working really, really well toward their peers. They were building self-confidence. And so, and we at Cushing School always feel that achievement is very personalized and it's different for every individual. So we've worked really diligently to recognize the talents and the strengths of each child and be able to help them to achieve to the best of what it is that's important for them. And then also when we talk about personalization here in our pillars, we successfully embed the growth mindset philosophy into all of our professional practice. Cushing has been wonderful in doing that. For example, our educators often allow our students to do retakes, on assessments. They might work with some reflection on, to help build some concepts and to clarify any misunderstandings and to provide them more opportunity to master the skills that are necessary in an academic arena, both in the classroom as well as in our Scituate Education Academy sessions. We've provided enrichment and an intervention for our students to help further their experiences in education, help them with some problem solving, and with the goal of really helping them to also develop that outside of the box thinking. We've given them project-based opportunities. We encourage authentic learning. We also we're very fortunate at Cushing. We have an amazing PTO. And so we've really worked hard to partner with our PTO because they have offered us an incredible amount of opportunities for our students to, again, just touch upon that personalization and help our children learn and grow. So this school year, we enhance our educational practices and learning opportunities through the implementation of Windblocks. The foundation of this model has really relied on the success of our data teams. These grade level teams, which consist of general education teachers, special education teachers, and literacy and math specialists, they meet regularly to discuss students' progress, and it kind of assists them on what our next steps are for each child. Through analysis of benchmark data, progress monitoring data, the teams are able to identify the learning gaps for children by standard, by content, and or by skills. And they use this information to plan and implement instruction that is going to be more personalized and differentiated for our students. It's in order to support and extend grade level curriculum across all content areas. We also implement the implementation of tier 1, 2, and 3 instruction occurs throughout the learning day in the general education setting, with greater focus being targeted during the Windblock, during our Windblocks, which I'll get into more detail later in the presentation. You know, there's a lot of collaboration, there's a lot of consultation, there's co-planning. It's really an all-in approach to try to help our children to make, you know, more than just reach the benchmarks. We really want them to excel to their fullest potential. So, you know, when we talk about the culture of collaboration and highlights, data teams have been a really big piece of that. You also talk about in this, the parent-teacher conferences. Family participation in parent-teacher conferences has been phenomenal. We've been very fortunate. If you really look back into what the last couple of years have looked like, it hasn't always been the perfect model for us, but we did learn a lot. And so we are now able to offer the opportunity for parent-teacher conferences, both in person and virtually, which has really increased our participation rate. A lot of families who, for whether they're working or a situation where they have other children to stay at home, they've been able to jump in on conferences. And that's not just for the 2 times a year that we have conferences. That's really for all of the things that we do in, you know, to try to communicate with families. When, you know, sometimes it's a phone call home, or perhaps it's a virtual meeting to discuss some concerns or needs that families may have. So we have, you know, our rate has been very, very good, and we're really proud of the work that we are doing, because without the collaboration of families, our students are not going to grow and achieve to their fullest potential. Also, for collaboration, we have our LIT team that's comprised of students and educators, and they seek out the perspectives, the feedback, and the voices of every demographic that's represented in our community. And then they incorporate those voices into decision making. They've collaborated, planned, and implemented authentic opportunities and activities to help students make meaning of and process certain moments in time, what's happening with their world at a specific moment. We have a really fantastic team. They model and support the work that they've been doing. They kind of own, they address one's own and others' explicit and implicit biases. They kind of identify. It's funny because we have, you know, we have these children in 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade who are part of our LIT team, and we learn so much from them, from their perspective. They talk about behaviors. They talk about, you know, how we can bring more understanding to the cultural differences and perspectives and backgrounds of a whole group of people. So that collaboration has been really uplifting, and it has really enhanced the culture of Cushing School. And then, you know, I can't say enough about the collaboration that we have with our Cushing PTO. They have been really instrumental in supporting us and enriching the experiences that the students have, as well as the staff. We've had recently we've had a couple of author visits that have been really exciting. So the PTO, they gave each of our children, kindergarten through grade 3, a book called What If You Could Sniff Like a Shark. It's by Sandra Markle, and it's a very highly engaging nonfiction text with humorous illustrations that talk about the superpowers of ocean animals, which was so appropriate. And her author's visit, when Sandra Markle came to visit us, she had conducted online, she was conducting certain experiments and really just enticed and engaged the students. It was wonderful. And then grades 3, 4, and 5, the PTO had provided us with a hardcover copy for each child of the highly acclaimed book Linked by Gordon Corman. It's really a beautifully written story about a quiet community that's shocked by the appearance of a SWAT sticker in their school. And the characters get an opportunity to learn about the history and the significance of the symbol, and they respond by leading a project of reflection and respect that brings people together in a powerful and healing way. So, you know, our literacy specialists had shared the synopsis of both of these books, and then afterwards we were able to, you know, have an author's visit with Gordon Corman. It was really phenomenal. Kids had an opportunity to ask some questions. It was really in-depth and very, very well done. I will say that for both authors' visits, we really enjoyed it, and the kids brought away so much from it. So I think that's what we're doing. And as far as there's some highlights of our collaboration, and then when we talk about Pillar 2, Culture of Excellence highlights, there's a lot that we have been doing. This was a difficult presentation to put together because Cushing is doing so many fabulous things when it comes to collaboration or to, you know, for excellence. But we picked out some of the, you know, the real things that have had a great impact on us. Number one is the Universal Screener for Number Sense in grades K to 5. And it's an assessment that we use. It's just a really quick assessment that helps us to identify skills and concepts that indicate readiness for grade level content, as well as identify students who would benefit from additional support. The fall screeners were very interview based with the students, and the mid-year and spring screeners had both interview components as well as written tasks. We've also rolled out the Foundations Phonics program. It's a multi-sensory, evidence-based systematic phonics program and progression. It's based on Wilson reading. It teaches students all of the building blocks for reading and writing, and how words connect with encoding and decoding, so that the students are first fluent with the reading and writing of syllables, and then able to connect those syllables into longer words. There's a 30-minute daily whole group, their unit tests that show teachers what students know and need to learn for focusing during small group and during Windblocks. It has been, we are seeing, the proof is in the pudding. We are really seeing some really great results by our Foundations Phonics program. We also expanded Heggerty phonemic awareness to include grade 2. And that is another phonemic awareness program that builds student skills in rhyming, blending, segmenting, deleting, and substituting sounds in a spoken word. There are hand gestures that go along with the task to help students solidify, you know, what are they doing with their learning. And it has been really, really incredible. It gets a little bit more difficult as skills are built. It was a little challenging to try to roll this out during the masks, when children were wearing masks, but it's now that we're not wearing them anymore, we're really able to implement it very well. And then I cannot say enough about our Scituate engagement academies. Cushing has really had some wonderful offerings. We've had a few things. We've had like in session 2, we had offered the Sunshine Club, and it really was geared toward kindergarten and first grade. And the goal of the club was to provide students with an opportunity to learn and practice self-regulation, mindfulness, and cooperation skills. They learned through literature, some group activities and play. They had a final art project, and where they practiced all of these skills. What we heard from our families in kindergarten and first grade was very, very positive. They were really overwhelmed and excited about the fact that their children had participated, and the kids were really looking forward to it. We also ran in the first two sessions for the C, for the C sessions, we ran a third, a fourth, and a fifth grade math lab. We also ran a fourth and a fifth grade homework club. So in the homework club, this gave the students an opportunity to just come in, any homework at all. They were able to provide, to get some support for the homework. They also learned some study skills, and they studied for assessments, and they had an opportunity to engage in some really fun hands-on activities and with, cooperative board games as well as card games. And in the third grade math lab, this past session, we, just to give you a little idea of the success of our programs, we had 18 students that had enrolled in third grade math lab, and we had 90% attendance throughout the 6 weeks that we ran that. Fourth and fifth grade homework, we had 32 students that enrolled, and we also had 90% attendance. We're already planning session 3, and we're planning to expand a math lab opportunity for our second grade. And we're going to have some of the third graders who participated in the third grade math lab to be able to come in and be buddies for some of our second grade. So it'll be a nice little mix. I do have to really put out a really heartfelt thank you to Dr. Long from Jenkins School. Her efforts in coordinating these C sessions for the elementary school has really been instrumental. And I want to thank also Ms. Abdallah, Mrs. Dewberry, Mrs. Hicks, and Mrs. Trickler, who led the way for these sessions. They did a really great job. So WIN, a little bit more about WIN for you. I could go on about WIN. It has been just a wonderful addition to the regular schedule and the regular learning day of our students. For our literacy blocks, we have literacy and reading, we have our Windblocks, and both literacy specialists have been deployed to work with the K-3 students, especially at the beginning of the year. We're starting to spread out a little bit more, but we really focused on K-3 in the beginning. Because of this extreme need for the foundational skills that our students, and we needed skill remediation for our younger kids. Students have daily small group with their teacher, they have with their teacher, then they'll either leave or have more intervention and support within the classroom for some extra doses. Small groups are usually 5 or fewer. Students are formed based on benchmark DIBELS data and teacher input, and students with similar needs are placed in groups together. Formative data from DIBELS monthly progress monitoring is used to inform instruction and adjust the children's placement, and so that the groupings are extremely fluid. We utilize the district's newly adopted systematic and explicit phonics program, our foundations, in a mirroring and supplementing classroom instruction, and lessons have been very efficient, intensive, and yet really engaging for our students. They've employed a balance of structured drill, multi-sensory activities, and cooperative games, and it has really been very positive for our students. They work on building fluency through repeated readings into decodable texts. There's been ongoing collaboration between our literacy specialists and our classroom teachers and our special education teachers, and there's also the children's social and emotional needs have been also supported through the Cushing PBIS house, with points awarded at the closing of each lesson, which most excitingly, the approach is working. And just as an example, our first grade, when we took our beginning of the year assessment and we then analyzed it against our middle of the year assessment, we had a 56% decrease in the number of the students who were requiring intensive intervention. We were really, really, really excited about that. The other thing is the math specialist also has a Windblock that, and she has really been working in grades 1 through 5, really providing adaptive and ongoing WIN support as necessary. There has been a focus in the beginning of the year for a heavier emphasis on grades 1, 2, and 3. But as needs were identified, we were we were able to try to redeploy because we were having success and students were reaching benchmark. It was time to move, and so we've been being able to offer it to our other grade levels, our higher grade levels, in more consistent, more timely way. Formative data from the Symphony Math benchmark, as well as the Frontline Universal Screener for Number Sense, has been really the data that we have been using in order to build our math win blocks. It has been challenged. It's a challenging environment, but kids really come willingly. They look forward to it. Again, there's a lot of fluency practice. There's manipulation of numbers and words. They use a lot of manipulatives, and they use the math tools necessary to help to reach all learners. And again, it's just an approach that is working. At the beginning of the year, Symphony benchmark, just as an example, grade 1 had 8 students in the at-risk category. On the middle of the year, 6 students moved into borderline and or not at risk category. So we were very excited about that as well. So our win blocks have really been working, and it's been a really great initiative. Okay. So for the future, one of the big things we want is more community collaboration. I will say that prior to the pandemic, Cushing School we had tried to make a lot of really good connections. We were very fortunate to hold a Veterans Day lunch, which was tremendous. We had so many families from all over the country who came to join their children, their grandchildren, and their and their neighbors to celebrate. We were celebrating them and the sacrifice that our veterans have made, but it was so valuable for our children to also be able to experience that. Now that things are starting to open up, we would like to then begin again to start doing that outreach with our veterans and with our first responders. You'd have to live it to actually see how amazing it was and what a wonderful impact it was for our children. They were excited to be able to share the people in their lives who were either first responders or were in the military. But then our children were just engaged with the number of stories that they were able to walk away from. It was a phenomenal thing. The other thing is we used to work very closely with the Scituate Beautification Commission. Again, when the world shut down, that wasn't not something that we could do. But previously, we had worked with the Scituate Beautification Commission to try to advertise and to promote Ship Shape Day. We would like to get back into that as well. The other thing is that with the Scituate Beautification Commission, they would really be a great support for us as we start to do some of our science. I know that 2nd grade has planted seagrasses before. 4th grade has talked about some invasive species. It would really be great to have the SBC to be able to support that. The other thing that we're doing for excellence is that currently we're piloting 3 literacy programs at Cushing that have been vetted by DESE. Teachers who volunteered for these programs are implementing 1 unit of the program, and just to sample the implementation as well as what the impact is for our students. What will happen then is once they've completed that, our curriculum coordinators will be seeking feedback from our teachers as well as our students about the program, so that because basically we want to move forward and adopt whatever the best literacy program is in the world, and Bill's going to love this, but it is the literacy curriculum that will assist us to move us forward in becoming the best district in the world. So we're excited about that. And then we're, in the future, we want to continue with our cultural proficiency work. One of the really highlights for PD in our faculty meeting was that we were able to have Jamil Adams come in and work with our staff on engaging in complex conversations. He calls it the MOOD technique, and it's my history, our lives, and our future, which allows educators and staff to have a pathway for discussion whenever a complex topic arises. Educators and staff have further developed their skills and broadened their toolkit for diverse, complex, and equitable conversations with peers, colleagues, students, families, and members of the community. It was great. Jamil left us wanting more, you know, as we were filling in the feedback, I mean, that was really prevalent, that they just wanted him to come back, and we wanted to do more because we'd really like to be able to not only learn more, but have more opportunity to practice those skills. Because at the end of the day, we want to, as adults, we want to have a really solid toolkit, because, you know, we want to then, not that we haven't already, but I think really smoothly be able to transition it into the student, for our students as well, so that we can expand their cultural practices and proficiencies. So that's the work that we're looking forward to in the future. I mean, right now we have we are working on cultural proficiency, but that is going to be an ongoing task for us for, you know, for some time to come. So we can, and we'll never stop. You know, things change, and we will too. So that's the state of Cushing School. I want to thank everybody. Does anybody have any questions?
Well, first off, Principal Moffat, thank you for that presentation. I'm sure being the first of the 6 schools to go was a little daunting, but that was very detailed and very gave a lot of great insight into what's going on in your school.
Thank you.
So I'll turn it over to the committee to see if they have any questions for Principal Moffat.
I have a question, Mike.
Sure.
So I think one thing that parents were concerned about with COVID and masking was that some skills that kids learn in the earlier grades, they wouldn't, you know, they'd be lagging behind. So is the Windblock, do you feel addressing those concerns?
It is. I really feel that it is. We were concerned with that as well from the beginning of the year. What is lovely about the Windblock is that the kids will provide, teachers provide in the general education what was already going to be learned. And then it is an all-in approach where everybody's coming in, and for students who may have been identified with some gaps, they're just not meeting with their general education teacher. They may meet with their general education teacher, and then they're going to meet with one of our literacy specialists or our math specialists, whether it's they're going to one of the other rooms, or they're working with each other. The other thing that I really like is that it is not one classroom at a time. Our Windblocks are created around an entire grade level. So we have children going in and out. They get identified, we see the data, and they write again, just give the kids the support that they need. So we are seeing incredible growth. We're much happier than we thought it would be. We knew it would work, we just didn't know how well it would work. So yeah, those gaps are being closed. You know, we're bringing them forward, and you know, at the end of the year, we look at our end of the year data. Can I say that every single gap is going to be closed? No, but what I can say is that the kids have made really adequate progress, so that next year moving forward, we can continue with that work till it's completely closed and they've been able to master the skills that they need to get to.
Right, that's really great to hear. Thank you.
Thanks.
I just had one quick question for you, Principal Moffat. So in the beginning, you were talking about the data teams that were collecting information. Is that something that, are those data teams working across all of the elementary schools? And is it, you know, you're getting information from all 4 to boost not just what you need in Cushing, but, you know, maybe enhance some of the things you might not know is missing, or is it specific for a Cushing school?
So I lost you a little bit, Mr. Long. So you were asking about, do all 4 elementary schools use those data teams, and do we work with them across the district?
Well, I guess, do they work, is the data team that you have right now specific to Cushing, or do they go around the different elementary schools?
Oh, no, they're specific to Cushing. Our curriculum coordinators are the people who they participate and look at our data from the whole elementary level. And as principals, we do discuss our data because we want to share what's working in our schools and what's not. That's the beauty of having the math council as well as the literacy council under our curriculum coordinators, because we have an opportunity to share that data. But when we talk about the data teams within the school, they really are basic to the grade level. And you know, we have one meeting will be dedicated entirely to literacy. Another one will be dedicated to math. And we do that on a monthly basis so that we can make sure that we're really keeping an eye on the kids. So those data teams are specific to to Cushing School. But as I said, we also share data and best practices across the district, so that we are making sure that we draw upon our peers as well in other schools.
Okay, so those data teams are coordinating across the district as well as the principals sharing their information amongst each other.
Yes, we do. We share our information, and the curriculum coordinators are terrific in making sure that we're, this is going really well at Jenkins. Why don't you try it here at Cushing? They're good with that as well.
Okay, perfect. That's what I was hoping you would say, because
Yes.
I know in the past there's been concerns with each school doing something different. So I'm glad there's a lot of collaboration going on between the.
Yeah, we
Cool.
really pride ourselves on the collaboration that we are doing among the 4 elementary schools. It has made a big difference in the experiences that our students have, and that's it has been a big push for the 4 elementary principals. We can't always provide an exact experience, but we better provide it pretty close, and we better be addressing the same standards, and our kids should be making the same progress,
Right.
regardless of the school that they're going into.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Are there any other questions for Principal Moffett?
I just had a quick question. Leo. Hi, Leo. Leo says hello. Miss
Hi,
Leo.
Leo.
Oh, he knows that voice.
Yes.
All right, thank you, Leo. Just a quick question. You had mentioned the interventions that 68 Cushing students were getting the literacy interventions and then 53 at math. I don't know if you know offhand or roughly even, that's at this point in time, that has been reduced since September? That number's come down?
So it's interesting. The numbers fluctuate, and the reason is that we will move children into the borderline or the not at risk category, whether it's literacy and math. But as the curriculum becomes, or the skills and concepts become more difficult, we may have children who move in. So that's kind of an average. Has it decreased? Yes, but it's hard to document all of that data because of that 53, 25 of them are now not at risk, but then other children have popped. So it is a revolving number based on what needs to be learned.
Okay. And that could be said, that was also true before COVID, right? Like kids would be moving in and out and things were flexible.
Yes. Yes, regardless, that has always been the case. We want lots of growth. We have a lot to do between middle of the year and the end of the year. So if children, especially in the younger grades, if children are going to pop, you're going to see it middle of the year where they're really, really strong, and then something is very, very challenging. And so, but we're able to identify it pretty quickly and try to give them the support that's necessary. And if it doesn't, the other thing is our student study teams, the Windblock has been really great in providing us the information so that if we have a child who we know from beginning of the year, by middle of the year, they're still struggling. Our student study team's right there so that we can employ other approaches and do other things for those kids.
That makes sense. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I wanted to say about what you mentioned about community building and the veterans lunch. Like you said, to be there in that moment, having had the opportunity to go, and my brother-in-law attended as a veteran with Zachary, and it was awesome. And I can't wait for things like that to be more, come back and just do more of those things. I know other schools have really awesome pieces of their own culture that they want to bring back too. And it's just more of that really great community building. And that was a special event at Cushing. So
it was, and our students really need that exposure. They've been locked down and they've only had small groups of people in the last few years. For the children, I think that it's going to just be so beneficial. And it's a great day. It's the same thing with the Scituate Beautification Commission. They have so much to offer, but we haven't been able to work with them. North-South River Watershed Association is another one we'd like to be able to draw back in.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
I just had one general question, maybe a high-level overview for Principal Moffett. Obviously, there's a ton of things that are going on at Cushing School, and from our perspective, it's a result of the pillars that have been created by the district and administration. My question is kind of somewhat generic, but how much of a different direction did those pillars lead you than where you would have gone without those pillars in as a priority?
What the pillars offered us was an opportunity to really focus and hone in on certain things, because teachers, educators, we have really great ideas. We can be really big idea people. And we're going to grasp at a whole bunch of different things, but we're not always going to be really good on trying to focus in on stuff. And so the pillars have been really, really helpful for us in making sure that we hone in and really focus on those priorities, especially, collaboration. I think that everybody has really great ideas, but we're moving in the same direction. When it comes to excellence, when you talk about the pillar of excellence, what's been very nice about that is we as a district and as a leadership team we're actually defining what excellence looks like. Everybody has their own thought bubble of what it might be, but we are now working together as a team and as a district to determine what excellence looks like. When I had mentioned in my presentation how achievement and excellence looks different for every child in many different ways. There's certain things that we have to adhere to, but how can we rise up every child? And that has been a big focus for us. So I think that has been extremely helpful for us in the last few years to have that pillar of excellence, because we talk about it. Everybody had, prior to that, people had an idea of what it was, but there wasn't a big topic of conversation. I think that it needed to be a topic of conversation. Personalization, which rubs into both of them. I will say that elementary, I think that, elementary has always done really, really well with personalization. I think that all 6 schools really strive to do that. But again, there's some PD and some conversation about what else can be personalized. How can we share best practices? What is that going to look like? So I think the pillars have been very, very positive for us, because we talk about it. We talk about it and we talk about it all the time, and it's always in our focus, and we're looking forward to it. We're not, it's easy to go off into a tangent. We're less likely to do that now.
Great, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
All right, well, seeing no other questions, thank you again, Principal Moffitt, for the presentation tonight. And
thank you very much. I can go breathe now. I'm a little.
You did a great job, so take the rest of the night off.
Thank you, Mr. Long. Appreciate it.
And for the people in the meeting, this is the first of a series across all of our schools. So over the next 5 meetings, we'll be having state of the school presentations from each of our principals, to gain the same level of insight that the Principal Moffitt provided tonight. So next on the agenda under new business, there's something that I wanted to bring to the agenda to make sure that I shared with the committee. So the town DEI committee had shared a commitment statement to the different board chairs last week. I believe the Board of Selectmen have read this statement at the beginning of all of their meetings since that statement was put together. And I believe some of the other boards are putting it together as well. So I'm going to just share the statement quickly so that everyone can see it. Can you all see my screen?
Yes.
So the statement just reads, the Scituate, well, it was a school committee, but the Scituate School Committee is committed to providing an environment of respect during meetings. We ask all members to interact in a polite manner, even when there is disagreement. We value the participation of our community and want all participants, including marginalized and minoritized communities, to feel welcome and respected. We ask our committee members and all who participate to commit to these standards to support and respect our community. So first off, I wanted to make sure that the committee was aware that this had come out. I believe I heard from 2 of you last week, just in terms of making sure I had seen it, but then making sure that we present this in a way that makes sense across all of our meetings. I mean, we've been very fortunate that over the course of the past several months, any discussion has been very cordial among all people, either between our committees, between our staff, and with our community. It's really the reason I wanted to bring this up to committee is make sure that we present this in a way that reflects that this is the goal and expectation from our committee outside of our public comment policy, but also if whether we wanted this to be read at at the beginning of every meeting, whether we want it to be just posted at the top of our agenda, because hopefully some of the Zoom information will be, or at least being remote will go away in the near future, and making sure that it's something that we expect from all of our meetings, but at the same time, since we've been fortunate enough to have that over the course of the past several months, that we just represent it in a positive way. So I'll turn over to the committee if there's any questions, feedback, or preferred approach to how we include this commitment statement in our meetings going forward.
I mean, as you know, I've been asking about this, so I'm very excited to see it coming to fruition. And I would like to see us read it at every meeting. I think it's important enough, and we should be intentional and out loud about, this desire to have respect and civility. And I don't think it would, take up so much time that it would be problematic. So I'd like to see it read out loud for sure.
I agree with Carrie. I think it's important that everybody feels like they can have a voice, but also not be afraid to speak. So. And it should be read at every meeting.
Yeah, I mean, I support the statement. I think that it can be read at the beginning of every meeting. I think that and again, just to bring something up, I mean, most of, I guess, the issues that we've had in the past are more potentially during public comment. So maybe we read it before public comment, or maybe we just read it at the beginning. But I know that some folks maybe just come in later in a meeting to hear a topic that they want discussed rather than coming for the entire meeting. So I just don't know if reading at the beginning will reach everyone, or maybe it's just a matter of policy that we read it and it's there and we can refer to that if something comes up. So I'm in support of the policy. It's a matter of figuring out when the best time is to read it. And also just to remind everyone that we do have a school committee protocol list as well. And that was intended, I think, maybe to be read, I don't know, quarterly, maybe semi-annually, something like that, or just for people to refer to. So we do have that as well.
Yeah, and Peter, I agree with you with, I've been watching the number of participants in our meeting go up and down over the course of the meeting. You see it fluctuate with the Facebook Live as well. I'm totally fine reading it. I'm glad that the committee's approach, but maybe at the same time putting it at the top of our agenda, so that if someone sees the agenda, they can read it there. They see it there. We can still read it during our meeting, but that way, if someone misses the first 5-10 minutes, or we start late or whatever, start earlier than they expected, then we can, it's still out there and available for people to see.
I agree too. I think we should read it, and I like the idea of having it written too, just in case people, want it in writing. On our agendas, it's not like it's daunting or lengthy. It's pretty straightforward, and won't take, like Carrie had said, any time to read it at all. But I also think, like Peter said, that our operating protocols that we kind of did spend a good length of time on, kind of fine tuning, we maybe want to revisit those and see if we still are, on board with those, and how they kind of fit with this statement. Because I think it's important to, like, I think we should do this, but I also think there's maybe even more we can do, because school committee meetings are interesting in terms of, open meeting law and how the operating protocols truly are. And I think it's tough when people attend meetings and it feels like it should be conversational, and we all try to be friendly, and people want to share their thoughts and opinions, and we're talking about people's children, collectively. So I think to know and understand how the meetings are supposed to be run is important for people, so that they do feel like they're not being misheard, or not given an opportunity to share to the degree that they want to. So I think it's important that we put all of that out there, just so people have it.
Great. I mean, I just didn't want this to come up and us not have a discussion about it, but going forward, it can definitely be read before every meeting. And then for a future agenda item, I'll also put up our operating protocol, so we can bring that to light in either the 28th or the first meeting in April. And we can have a discussion on that as well. All right, thank you for that. Moving on then, next on the agenda, we have an out-of-country field trip request to France. So I'll turn it over to Dr. McGuire.
Good evening. As Celia mentioned, we already have students interested in our Galapagos trip, and with that momentum, would like to restart our world language exchange. Madame Funkhauser and Monsieur Kovac are here today to share details of our high school partnership with our school in France and a possible trip there for 2023.
Yes, hi. I'm Jay Kovac. I'm one of the 2 French teachers at the high school, and I'll let Madame Funkhauser say hi.
Bonjour, everybody. Thank you for inviting me to the meeting. It's my first one. I'm new this year. I'm not new to teaching, but I'm new to Scituate, and it feels great to be here and to jumpstart this program again, which is one of the reasons I joined your team here. It's a wonderful opportunity. Thank you for having me.
So I'll screen share a quick little presentation that I'll use. So the French exchange has existed since the early 2000s, or late 2000s, I think, at Scituate High.
Mr. Kovac, I just want you to stop. There you go.
Thank you. Is that better?
Much better. Thank you.
Okay. Every 2 years, traditionally, we go to France and we host. So this picture is from 2018, the last time we did go to France. And then 2020, of course, we started having issues with the pandemic. So we'd like to bring it back. And our sister city, Sucy-en-Brie, is in the suburbs of Paris. And we've been doing we've done about 6, I think, with Sucy-en-Brie. They also have a community-based exchange for adults and teens that takes place outside of our school trips. And we like to visit, so here's the nuts and bolts of what we're proposing is the exchange school that we usually work with has had a turnover of some of their teachers who were involved in the exchange. And that combined with the pandemic, they normally would come in the fall, but they have asked to hold off. They aren't ready to make any moves this fall, or sorry, in the fall of 2022. But they are open to having us visit. So we're looking to take French students for about 9 days during April break and a few days before or after. We would primarily stay with homestay families in Sucy-en-Brie. It's like a 25-minute commuter rail ride into the city. And we would have about 5 or 6 nights with students in families. Most likely they have teenage kids. That's always the priority. And the vast majority of the time, that's the case. This is where they get their language and cultural immersion. They are expected to use their French as much as possible, but depending on ability levels, of course, we understand. There will be daily excursions into the city and surrounding areas, mostly almost entirely public transportation, like the commuter rail and walking. We love to spend the day at the local high school, show them what school's like over there. That's a pretty powerful experience culturally for them. And then we normally add on 2 days to Normandy to get a little more, to see different aspects of the country. So for example, the D-Day beaches are always something that the students enjoy visiting and we find very much worthwhile. And Mont Saint-Michel is a medieval city on a hill, essentially, that we like to take them to as well. And we are hoping to bring about 20 students, and we're looking to increase our ratio of teacher to student, just because if in the era of COVID and the crazy off chance that a student tests positive, we need to be prepared for having someone stay back while they're quarantining. Normally we wouldn't try to have quite so many teachers, or we do it with a few fewer. The trip is open primarily to juniors and seniors enrolled in French, but if we fill those spots and there's only 15 coming, then we're considering opening it up to sophomores, for example, who take French. The trip in the previous years has cost around $2,500. I think it was $2,200 4 years ago, but we're expecting a small increase this year for like this coming year for a variety of reasons, mostly just the cost of travel, cost of flights. And down below, I've mentioned that there's a possibility for hosting in the fall of 2023. Again, they have not confirmed if they are interested. They have not confirmed this yet, but we want to keep it open and just get it on the radar that this is something that we do hope that they return the exchange, that they come back to us. Any questions so far? Alrighty, so just a real quick snapshot of the types of things we do. Of course, if we're staying outside of Paris, we're gonna go into the city and visit some of the best museums. We don't necessarily hit up each and every one of these, but the Musée d'Orsay or the Louvre, usually we do the Louvre and then we make the d'Orsay optional. Depending on the neighborhoods that we're visiting and how much walking we're doing, we might hit up some of the other smaller museums like the Centre Pompidou or the Victor Hugo Museum. The Normandy excursion, this is Mont Saint-Michel at high tide. So these people also understand tides. Drastically changes the terrain, but the Normandy component has a different history shift to it. And I would love to try and combine the French students on that trip, but it's hasn't happened for a number of exchanges. So that's not a guarantee, but I find the more you increase that exchange, the better. And also just the showing of what other schools are doing in relation to exchanges. There are a number of schools in Massachusetts that are running exchanges this year or next year, such as, for example, Falmouth has a French exchange next year. Triton, Hingham, North Reading, Chelmsford are just a few examples of schools getting back out to travel now that travel restrictions are decreasing. And the next steps would be to have a general interest meeting for Scituate parents in April. We do the trip in installments. And in the past, we've used a private company for booking our flights, Marshfield Travel, but it seems to have gone under as a result of the pandemic. But I've done a little research and it looks like any person can book. If you can have more than 10 people traveling at once, you can book as a group. And that's so valuable because it means you can modify the numbers of people going after you've purchased that original group. You can also occasionally change names if someone drops and you want to add someone. So that's extremely valuable to know. And also it keeps the cost down significantly to not have to pay any private companies. So May we would book flights. In fall, we would finalize exactly what portion is the homestay and what portion is tourism up in Normandy, typical tourism where you're not staying with a family. In the winter, that's when we would probably have collected all of the profile all of the profiles of the French homestay families. The vast majority are based out of this one high school, but because we partner with the town hall, sometimes we have homestay families that are not technically part of that high school. And then by March, we would have a pre-departure trip, and April, we would be heading out. So that's what I wanted to share.
And I'll just jump on quickly and say that I grew up in Paris and it's like my backyard. And I can't wait to take the students that I've met this year on such an adventure. I'm really, really pumped. And, both Jake and I've had years and years of experience taking students on different trips. So that's quite good that we're going to be able to get back in the swing of things. Because as we know, as everybody said tonight, it's really important for the kids to be able to get back to some kind of normalcy.
And having seen this trip come up a couple of times in the past, I know how much students look forward to it, but hearing their stories as they come back as well, it's obviously a great experience for them. And they take a lot out of it by those 9 days you're there. So I'm glad to see it come back to the school committee. Are there any questions from the committee on the field trip request?
No, but are school committee members allowed to go as chaperones?
I think sometimes when we get desperate, we open it beyond the teachers. We'll see.
Can Peter enroll in your class next year just for
Yeah.
If he enrolls, it's okay. Yes.
All right, I'll make a motion.
Actually, Chuck,
make a
before you
motion.
do, I had one question.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
So obviously with the unrest in Europe right now, as part of this trip, is there a way for the students to get insurance or some way that, if the trip gets canceled for whatever reason, they're not out their families are out the $2,500?
Right. So when you book individual flights, obviously you can do the different tiers. And in 2020, we got the middle tier, which normally would have let you get a voucher. And then because of the pandemic, they just gave us the full cost back. So the vast majority of the trip cost will be that one flight. And this, we will be sure to communicate with parents about the levels of insurance. The one thing I wasn't able to find out yet is if you do group travel, can each family choose the amount? And if not, then we're all going to ensure that they get a certain amount of insurance. We won't let, we're not going to book the bottom tier one, which means, oh, you lose out. So either they'll have the choice or everyone is going to get the at least the middle tier. And as for the extra, most of it's food, which, we're just not going to buy the food. And then I'd say about 500 euros is the Normandy excursion. And that part, it depends on how we book with each company. So they get the majority of that back.
Okay, perfect. And so you said 500 euros. Was that, do we have to worry about, do they pay that upfront in US dollars, or is there potential that that price could spring?
That wouldn't be an issue. The families will make incremental payments to a Scituate school fund. We're going to use the banking of Scituate Public Schools. And then when we use the vast majority of it for that flight, and then we're going to use some of it to book Normandy. And then we're not even going to take 500 of that out per person because that's just for food.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you for clarifying that. All right, Peter, now you can make your motion.
All right, I'll make a motion to approve the out-of-country field trip to Paris and Soucy-en-Brie, France in April of 2023.
Second.
Thank you. So the roll call vote, Ms. Longlon,
Yes.
Mr. Gates,
Yes.
Long, yes, Dr. Burkowski,
Yes.
and Ms. Brandolini.
Yes.
All right, well, thank you for bringing that to us. I hope you have a lot of interest in the students, and it's a great trip when you do end up getting a ticket.
Thank you very much. We look forward to putting it together.
So next on the agenda, we have a mass golf donation proposal. So I'll turn it over to Dr. McGuire and Mr. Payne.
Again. So I'd like to begin by giving a sailor shout out to our golf boosters, specifically Mrs. Spires, who has been working really hard for the past couple of years as the team moved from club to varsity sport this spring. She submitted this golf proposal to Mass Golf to try to help fund the team as we're in between budget moving from club to varsity. And after consulting with Athletic Director Payne, the CEO of Mass Golf agreed to give a one-time donation for our season from their legacy fund on behalf of Mass Golf to support the development of the team and our expenses, which includes coach, tokens, fees, transportation, and attire for the girls on the team. Because this directly ties to their mission and strategic plan for building an engaged community around the sport of golf and advancing women's golf in Massachusetts. It certainly helps us as a district because girls golf was not budgeted this year as a team, and we have plans to budget moving forward as a varsity sport. So this comes at a wonderful time and opportunity for the girls golf team.
And Dr. McGuire, I'm sorry, you said that cost will cover the coach, equipment, uniforms. Did I get that right?
It will cover the coach for sure, and then we'll put the rest of it toward the other expenses, which are transportation, uniforms, token fees, range fees.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, I was trying to write it down as you were saying it. I missed it. So based on that, and I know, we've been trying to look at funding for this. I know the boosters have done a lot of work trying to, make sure the girls have everything they need. I mean, from taking the athletic fees, thankfully for the last one and only time for this team, and then this donation, does that mean that we've covered everything that the girls golf team would expect to have to pay? Because I know there were some concerns about using the golf simulators in Hingham or Norwell, and just making sure they have all the equipment and everything that they need. So I want to make sure that at this point we can look at the girls golf team and say you are all set for your inaugural season.
I'm sure girls and boys golf alike would love to have a golf simulator on campus. They are fantastic.
Sorry, I believe they're traveling to wherever one is the next town over.
And they certainly are. I think there was a shore grant a few years back that looked into getting one for the high school. So I think barring that for the future, we are able to cover the costs for 2022.
That's great news to hear. Is there any questions from the committee on this donation? Typically, we do have to vote these. I believe that the school can still use the money without any delay on that. But since the agenda didn't say discussion/vote on it, we'll just have to bring this back quickly in our next meeting to vote to approve the donation. All right, well, thank you, Dr. McGuire, for bringing this up, and obviously to the boosters for all the hard work they've done over the course of the past year and a half. As we've gone to make this a varsity team, and looking forward to when the season starts for them next month?
Next week.
Next week. Oh, great.
Yeah, the boosters have been great, and the team, the girls are very excited, as are we.
We are as well.
Thank you.
Mike, I just want to echo Dr. McGuire's comments about Kim Spires and all the work she's done advocating, as you know, with the boosters for the girls to get this a reality. She really deserves pretty much all of the credit. So let's give that to Kim. Good job. And of course, all of the high school team as well.
Would be a great addition to Celia's report the beginning of every meeting. So moving on, we have the leadership reports. So we'll start with Superintendent Burkhead.
Thank you, Chairman Long, and good evening, everyone. Great to be here this evening, and I just want to kind of piggyback on that last presentation and all the great things that I've heard this evening. I do also want to personally thank Ms. Spires for the work she's done even before I got here and laying the foundation for girls golf to become a reality. It shows you that with hard work, tenacity, and a will to work collaboratively, that things can happen. So this is really exciting. I also want to thank Dr. McGuire and Mr. Payne for making this a reality and then reducing the costs. I remember Mr. Payne early, I believe in October, when this was all being discussed, said he would do everything in his power to make this happen, but also to do so virtually free of charge to the families that have worked so hard for this and the girls. So by getting this scholarship, he has kept his word on that. So I want to thank him and Dr. McGuire for their work on that as well. So look forward to seeing the girls play and have fun doing so. The next thing I want to talk about briefly is the state of the district. Just to summarize, this will be something we look to do every year. And it will start with my presentation, as you recall, back in February, on doing a high-level view of the state of the district. But I also thought it was important, and this was from feedback from the committee, so thank you, and also from our community members, that people want to see what's happening in their children's school. District-wide is important, obviously, but I think Donna Ms. Moffett tonight, Principal Moffett, did a really good job of setting the tone, going first, and then in the 5 subsequent meetings from now, you'll be seeing the other principals also do a similar platform to review our initiatives and how we measure growth and successes, and also things that we're continuing to work on in the future. I think those 3 things are important. So those align with the district, and you'll see a lot of crossover in individuality with each school. So we're looking forward to future presentations. And then at the end of the year, we still have the school improvement plans to talk about, which will kind of summarize and articulate the vision of each school moving forward. Also want to give a Medco update. I was proud to attend a Medco directors meeting at Gillette Stadium on Friday with other superintendents, assistant superintendents, DEI directors, and Medco directors, including our own interim director, Daryl David. It was very insightful. Some of the topics included the growth of the Medco program, recruiting and retaining a diverse staff, and ensuring progression towards creating communities of belonging. So really took home a lot of great ideas that I'm looking forward to sharing with our leadership committee and the greater community once they're implemented. But there's a lot of promise and hope as we continue to grow as a Medco school district. Specifically, we still have a Medco opening. As folks know, the position right now held by Mr. David is an interim position. He is able to stay through and commit through April, so that's really good. It's giving us some time to really spend a lot of time in the process. We have some finalists that we're in the interview phases of now, so you'll be hearing from me soon on when that decision is made and our next steps. So stay tuned. Next, I'd like to move to the MSBA building project for the Hatherley and Cushing School combination. Last meeting, I informed the committee that there would be a March 1st meeting. I believe it fell the day after our last meeting, in which we were to attend the board meeting, the MSBA board meeting. We did attend. We were early, and we were accepted into the next phase, which is the feasibility and schematic design phase. We're really excited about that. In the next school committee meeting, we encourage people to come if they can. We'll be giving an outline overview of what that is. So we'll be able to articulate to the community. Obviously, we'll be posting that on our website, but also sending it out in Thursday Thoughts and other venues to make sure that folks, whether they are able to attend the meeting or not, have access to that. We'll also be offering several opportunities in the coming months to explain that at different venues for the community to ask questions and to understand. It's very involved. It could last from 12 to 24 months, the process, and it involves a lot of community voice. So there'll be a lot of opportunities for people to weigh in during this phase. So we'll keep you posted. Again, we'll have an overview of what that entails at our next meeting. Next, I'd just like to talk about some upcoming events where continue to discuss building relationships. You know, and one of my goals is to make community relationships and start to get to know the community and meet people and just to listen and to hear what our community is saying. And I know Donna Moffett had mentioned it, that, and I know members of the committee have mentioned this several times. What is our definition of academic excellence? And I think the big goal this year was to start putting it on the front burner. Like, we need to talk about this. What is it? What's some examples? And I think you're seeing some of those. You saw some tonight in Donna's presentation, and you'll see some of those school-based in the next State of the Districts. But we also, at the same time, while we're doing that, while we're talking about it constantly and assessing and evaluating and defining that, we need the input from the community members. So a couple opportunities tomorrow at 1:30 and 6:30 p.m. There'll be two opportunities. I'll be holding Seaside Chats, and I'll give a little introduction on some of the things that are happening in the district. And then the rest of the meeting will be just opened up to community conversations. Again, we're also trying to model at these meetings, responsible and interactive conversations to involve the community in those. And so I'm really excited about it. Hope folks can attend. Also, there'll be another opportunity in April where I mentioned this before. We'll be doing what we're calling thought exchanges, which will be an open-ended question to talk about and get input from all stakeholders. Once you'll have an opportunity to answer those questions, you then go and rate 1 to 5 stars other people's comments to kind of develop some trends for that. So we'll be rolling that out in the coming weeks, but I did want to highlight that in April, we haven't chosen a date yet, but we want to kind of educate everybody on what thought exchange is. It's a form of a survey, but it's more interactive, and I think it gets a lot better results. It is held by an outside group, so it's an independent group that comes in and runs these for us in collaboration with us. So stay tuned for that, more information on that before we roll that actual thought exchange out. And then we'll be doing several more of those as we go on. For example, MSBA, there's a lot of questions that we need input from the larger community. A thought exchange allows you to get thousands of people's perspectives, and then breaks that data down into trends and to groupings, and allows you to use that in a more user-friendly manner to share back with the community. So we'll be using that thought exchange on, people get really used to it, and I think they'll really like it when they see it. Finally, I just want to end with some Celia shout outs. Celia did a real good job of kind of sharing all these, but I'm really proud of our GSA students. It's a smaller group of kids, but they're growing, and we had 200 people participate in the walkout. But what you showed it to me is what can be done when students really feel passionate about something and want their voice heard. I was also really proud of Dr. McGuire and her team to sit down and work with the students to make this happen. It was a collaborative work. It was It wasn't where the students just got up and walked out and forced this thing. They actually had conversations about how to do it well. And that's how you learn advocacy. And so it is a really good learning experience. And we talk about authentic and experiential learning experiences. This is one great example of how high school kids can have their voices heard and be respected and actually do something that means something. So kudos to those students. Look forward to meeting them. Next, I'd like to congratulate Dr. McGuire and her team. Also, I know they work closely with Mr. Beatty and his team to have the curriculum night. Really great to have these things back in person. The schools have been buzzing in the evening. And one of my definitions of a characteristic of one of the best districts in the world is that the after school energy in a building is just as exciting and inspiring as the work done during the day. Meaning there's all kinds of activities and opportunities for students and families happening after school. And I think I've seen more in the last month than I've seen in the 2 years I've been here. So, and that's only going to grow. So really exciting to see that happening and the families coming to get a good idea. And that was student led again. So getting the students really involved in their education and also supporting the new students coming up into the building also sends a message of a home away from home and that we support you, we're here for you. And coming from the students, it's much more powerful. Next, I was honored to be invited by Mr. Thomas to attend the Southeastern Junior Musical Festival this weekend. And the place was packed. There were students everywhere. The auditorium was packed for the two performances, and they were absolutely amazing. I was really impressed with what kids were able to do. And in talking to the families and the students from over, I said, 70 districts, hosting such a monumental undertaking, really says a lot to our music teachers, Mr. Thomas and his team and the principals and our custodial team. It was just really done well and it was run smoothly. And some of the outcomes that I was really impressed with when walking through the buildings during the weekend was the social interaction among the students from other districts, meeting new friends, playing music together, singing together. It was a really powerful in-person experience. So I want to just, say thank you to all of them and for our team for hosting. A lot of compliments on the facilities. It was just really impressed with the pack, but also having the ability to use Gates and the high school and all the great learning spaces we have for our young musicians was really appreciated, as well as from their teachers. So wanted to share that. And then finally on to athletics. And I might stop here for a second and say that when we talk about academic excellence, there's also excellence in the arts and in athletics and in after-school activities like the Sea Academy. So that, just so folks know, is also part of our definition of what makes great school districts. And it's the opportunities that students have and that, now we're looking into that. We want to make sure that every student has a home after school and an opportunity to participate in. So these are just extensions that I'm talking about tonight that are really taking off. And again, Celia mentioned this, but just to reiterate, the boys basketball team will be playing, have moved to the Final Four, and they'll be playing at Taunton High School on Wednesday at 6:30 if folks can make it. Boys hockey will be, they won against Neshoba last weekend, and they will advance to the Frozen Four and take on their arch rival Hanover on Tuesday, tomorrow at 5:15 at Gallo. So hopefully folks can continue to support our teams as they move on into the tournament. And I want to end with a compliment that was shared to Mr. Payne by an opposing coach, a coach, mind you, that had lost a tough game in our boys basketball at our gym on Friday evening. Hi, Scott. I just wanted to take a second to email and say congrats to you in the basketball program. That was a phenomenal atmosphere last night, and you guys are a class program. To have such a rocking gym and keep it respectful all night is no easy task. When we were handed water and pizza on the way out, I couldn't believe it. Fine job by you and your department. Best of luck in the next round. Colin Halpin, Wakefield basketball coach. So I think that alone, we talk about culture a lot. Obviously for Mr. Payne and his team and Dr. McGuire and Mr. Louette and Ms. Hughes, who are always at the game supporting the kids, to our student fans, to our parents. I've seen these things as a former AD get out of hand, and crowd control is a huge concern. Our school community should be commended for this compliment from a gentleman who had just lost, and he should be complimented for his grace in sharing that. So I just wanted to share that publicly with everyone, and again, compliment and commend everybody that was involved in that, but even that was present, that it was a positive, exciting environment. And it was a class act by all, including our students and players and coaches, to win with grace and to lose with grace. I think was a really good sign of what we define as sportsmanship. So I'll end on that this evening and thank everybody.
Thank you, Superintendent Burkhead. That's a great point to make at the end on the sportsmanship by our fans and our coaches, and really our town as a whole. So thank you for sharing that story. I'll open it up. Are there any questions or comments from the committee?
Superintendent Burkett, I was just curious, I'm going back to your conversation around academic excellence. I know you and your leadership and teachers are having these conversations. I was wondering if you could just give us a little bit of insight into your process, because as you know, academic excellence, and as Principal Moffett mentioned, it's a huge idea and concept. And so I'm wondering, how are you and your team thinking about this idea, and how are you starting the process of breaking it down and defining it, and then sort of bringing it to the community?
Sure, thank you, Dr. Kowski. It's a great question. Well, I think we start every conversation when we have our leadership meetings of providing examples of what it is and debating whether that may be an example or why not, why or why not. And then the important thing is, how do we measure that? Is it measurable? So I also think that's important. So I think those are some of the things, and we're starting a running list. And that's why kind of tonight you've seen from the state of the district that we have outcomes. And, as you had mentioned several times, it's important to have data to support that. And Donna has, gave some examples of that. So I think we're also doing that. And then we're kind of putting things in buckets like, okay, is it academic excellence? Or like I shared tonight, some examples of extensions of academic excellence and excellence in general, what things fall into there, opportunities for kids, whether it be the C academies, whether it be the athletics, clubs and activities. And so how do we measure those as being excellent? So it's more like as we move along in try any new initiative or current initiatives, we are basically assessing them as we go and kind of putting them under that microscope of, is that a definition, or will that fit our definition of excellence? So I think just collecting all those things and then looking forward to our summer retreat and trying to, I think that would be the place once we get, because we're the last missing piece to this is getting the community feedback. On this one open-ended question is going to be something along the lines of, what's been your experience at the Scituate Public Schools, good, bad, and ugly? And we're hoping folks will share some of the great things that they either have been experiencing or want to see. And I think we'll encumber that into our definition and then start to kind of put these building pieces together so that everyone's had an ability to contribute. We've had a year to live it and then come out with some type of a definition or measurement tool for the community in the fall as early as possible. And then, and I also think it's a moving target where one definition is not, as we've said, is not going to be black and white. It may be something we come up with and that it's malleable, and that over time we live it and we assess it. And like anything else, we improve on it, on that definition and what we use to measure that definition. But I think that's our goal, is to kind of collect all the information this year, get community input, get it, and then kind of over the summer, take our time to digest it, dissect it, and then come up with something that we're willing to share with the community on what we've found and learned over the last year or two, and what the input is from all our constituents, and then share that back out, and how will we measure it, and come up with a plan to share with you all.
I'm also curious, I guess I'm wondering, I love that you're collecting information from, the voices in the town, of course. I'm wondering to what extent you're also engaging with, our higher ed neighbors, our employers, our, folks that will eventually employ many of our students, and sort of thinking about what does the market require and what does the market want to see in our students, and sort of how are you mapping our sort of sense of academic excellence around those sort of potential outcomes?
Yeah, I think those go hand in hand with our partnerships and our goal of collaboration. One example is the Bridgewater State Collaborative partnership we have, where we meet regularly with them. We have a pulse there. I'm a member of a 16 school consortium on early college. I haven't spoke a lot about it because it's really new and I'm just testing the waters there, but that's going on. So we've got a lot of input from other colleges there on the perception on early college, what they're looking for students, that type of thing. I know Dr. McGuire has been doing some work, preliminary work on connecting with post-graduate opportunities in her work. So we're working with local businesses and that kind of thing. I know she has some work to do there. That's probably a next year type of thing. So we do have fillers out with all those constituents, and certainly, we'll be trying to share this survey information with those groups as well. But those conversations are ongoing and regular. We ask them the same thing, what are you looking for in a graduate? And one thing we haven't mentioned much this year, and it may be something that we bring up next year, is a portrait of a graduate. And NEASC is doing a lot of work with that. And I know that's been, it's kind of like backwards design. What does the graduate look like at Scituate when they graduate Scituate High School? And that's a form of excellence. What can we be proud of? What are the characteristics, skill sets, and that will prepare our students to go on and be successful after high school? And so I think that is in our plans in the future, is to come up with a plan to develop our vision of a graduate, and then work backwards K through 12 at each grade. What does it look like at the end of this grade, at the end of kindergarten, first grade? And so that's a pretty lengthy process, but an important one that is research-based and supported. So I think over our conversations over the summer, you'll be hearing some of that and our plans to roll that out as well, which is, a really good way to kind of, measure and show what's important, and getting all those groups, including the postgraduate type of folks that are in the job fields, as they are changing, as we know, and what's important skills, and the education that we had 20 years ago may not be working for the jobs that are out there or aren't even created yet. So all that is a work in progress and something we have our eyes on.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mike, can I just jump on what the superintendent was saying about districts? Because I was fortunate enough to see the 3:30 performance, and if I want to thank Seth and his team for taping it. And if anybody wants to see a phenomenal music program, they should watch it. It's on this SCTV Facebook page, and to give an idea of how hard these students work, all these students from different districts come together and for 6 hours on Friday and then all day Saturday for the concert band, they learned 4 songs, and it sounds amazing. So if you want to see hard work, take in those performances. So, and I want to thank again, shout out to our music program. All the band directors and teachers are phenomenal. We're so lucky.
And Janice, to that point, I think we're also pretty fortunate that, you go on the Scituate TV Facebook page and there's always some student event going on. They're streaming it live, whether it's the basketball game Friday night, the music events on Saturday. So being able to either watch them live while they're going on or go back and watch them after the fact, there's a lot of great opportunity for us to really see what our students are doing and how they're succeeding outside the classroom. So it's a great point.
Yeah, after spending all the time my daughter spent at districts, she went and watched the whole concert over again.
Well, thank you, Superintendent Burkhead, for the leadership report on it.
Thank you.
So next, I'll turn it over to Ms. Driscoll for the Assistant Superintendent's Report.
Thank you, Chairman Long. I just want to give a shout out to Celia, who's just a superstar every time she comes on here. And I wanted to reiterate congratulations to our mathletes. That's one of my favorite words. And today is Pi Day, if you don't know. So I'm going to give those mathletes an extra shout out. Great work and coming in second. What I am going to share with you today is a little overview of, I think, some information that we've been asking about with this upcoming standardized testing season. And I've heard a lot of questions about rankings and lists and things like that. And what I want to reiterate, if I haven't done this already, is that all of those lists are grounded in College Board information and our state data. period. So if we are wanting to make a difference on any of those outside measures, which if they have advertisements on them and things like that, it's not always the best measure. But our state data and our College Board data is where we can find some of that. So I have a presentation for you. Can you see that okay?
Yes, we can.
Great. So I titled my presentation, Partnering to Demonstrate Our Best Takes All Hands. It is very, very important that no one see achievement or academic excellence, as we've heard so many times today, as something that can be done by a single group or a single person. We need administrators, schools, teachers, parents, students, school committee members, community members to promote an environment that supports success for everyone. So I'm going to give you an example of something that informs lots of these different rankings. Increasing access to AP, which we've talked about many times already this year. But it's really important that when we get to these exams, we are all messaging that students should have confidence and motivation, not anxiety. And the teachers too. We want to make sure that we're, again, removing barriers to success. So on some of these lists for taking an AP exam or for a student taking an AP exam, you get a point. For certain scores, you get 3 points. So this year alone, we are on track to have 139 more AP exams than last year, which is a pretty great number. And I want to compliment the high school team who's been working with Mass Insight because that is no small achievement. So if you want to look into what that means for us this year, you can look at the green column. The green column is how many more exams we have in FY22 by AP exam. We either sustained or increased in most areas. Let me see. It is important to know that even though we have 139 additional exams, at the high school, there are 57 fewer students grades 10 through 12 than there were last year. Additionally, another note is that even though it looks like we went down in English when it comes to exams, overall, we actually increased by 19. If you look, there are 2 different English exams, and in total, we went up by 19. There's a language exam and a literature exam. Something that everyone should be aware of, and this might take a bit to process, but as we expand AP access, what we are doing, we may see a drop in some of the average scores because with more tests and increased access means we are not gatekeeping. So some other school districts, if you see 100% fives or something like that, we can make that happen, but that means we would exclude tons of kids from having access to this rigorous curriculum. And statistics show that students who engage in AP exams, whether they actually take the exam or not, are more successful in their 4-year college degrees. Let's see. Something that I do want to note here is that in FY23, already. We have an AP Computer Science Principles. We're on track for 19 students. For AP Environmental Science, which is a new offering, it looks like there are 54 students who already signed up. And for AP Human Geography, 38 students. So that's already for next year, increased access to advanced placement experiences, courses, and exams. Now, what I need or what we need help from the community with, from parents, from everyone, is this column where we have a missed opportunity. We have 156 students who are in AP courses and not taking the exam. Sometimes I think students might be afraid to take the exam. What if I get a low score? But it really has to be a community message that We do want and encourage everyone to take it and participate. So we have 156 missed opportunities. And what that also does is gives us that feedback to have a full picture of achievement for everyone who engaged in those courses. Do you have questions about this before I switch to the next slide?
I just have a quick question. I know, Ms. Driscoll, you already mentioned it briefly, but I know that the number of students you said decreased from 10th, 11th, and 12th this year. But I know that this senior class is larger. So is there another way that we can measure that, like percentage of students rather than the number of exams taken? Which one is a more accurate number? Because I'm assuming that 2023, we're probably going to have fewer students in the high schools because we have that large graduating class. I just want an accurate measurement. I want to make it look like it's a negative.
Yeah, so as of right now, it is even with 57 fewer students, which you're right, is due to a smaller class. Even with fewer students, we have 139 more exams. So it is absolutely in the upward trend, even though the class is smaller. If we use percentages, because the numbers are very small and the classes are big, it looks very tiny. So this, I think, student by student is something that for our purposes right now, makes more sense to look at. And like I said, when I hear people talking about lists and rankings, it is literally student by student and engagement with these exams. That's one of the ways people from the outside might rate us. Other questions?
Heidi, just a quick question. The 156 that aren't taking them, I was just curious, do other districts, is there any way that, do other districts like require all students taking AP to take the exam, or is it case by case, or?
Nicole, that is a great question. If there are some districts that require students to take the exam, if you do require students to take the exam, typically your numbers go down for participation. Because it's a mandate and it's an expense. So do we require something that's a cost? That is one of those gatekeeping elements that Mass Insight discourages us from engaging with. We want to expand the AP experience and the positivity of it as much as possible. So I know that Dr. McGuire and her team, they're doing an AP kickoff. There will be more conversations about why it is important to take those exams that will hopefully even increase that further. Okay.
Before you go on, Ms. Driscoll, I had 2 quick questions on that slide. Yeah. So obviously the number of AP exams seem to be growing year by year. Do we know from the state if there are some additional ways that they might offer AP exams in the future, or is that you kind of hear about it year by year?
I'm not sure what you mean, how the state will offer AP. So College Board offers the AP exams.
Sorry.
Yep, that's okay. During the pandemic, they were allowed to take them online for the first time ever, and some were abridged versions of the exams. That we are back to regular AP testing at this point. And our students were able to participate in mock exams this year, which I'll get to some of those things we're doing to get ahead of this in a bit.
And for the 156 exams that weren't taken, I mean, there's some pretty big percentages in like AP Psychology, AP Statistics. Do our teachers have conversations with the students to say, is there a reason why you're uncomfortable for not taking the exam, or is it, just it's an offering, and if students choose not to take it, we accept the answer of no and move on?
Oh, teachers absolutely have conversations, but there's different reasons. So for exam, AP Statistics does not wipe out a core math requirement in colleges typically. Your AP Calculus would. AP Statistics counts as an elective, which electives, of course, are useful credit-wise, but it looks different. So that might be, it's kid by kid, really. And we would, at this point, there is no mandate because mandates don't result in positive engagement. We want students and families to want to take the exams and to participate. And again, that is what we are working with Mass Insight to increase access and hopefully on top of that, increase achievement. Did I see someone else had a question too, or no?
I just on this, not to say on this, but obviously the cost of the exams is an issue. It'd be interesting to find out if that's the main reason. And if so, maybe we look at a way to, at some point, we're looking at waiving fees. Maybe look at a way to, first AP test is free, something like that. But I'd be curious to see how much the cost of the exam is a determining factor in people not, and the students not taking them.
Yeah, I think that is innovative ways to eliminate that barrier, I think is a wonderful idea. I think that, well, I know that if students have an issue paying for the exam, Tammy Rundle and the guidance department absolutely make sure that they have a discounted exam. That is a part of the College Board process. But these do add up. They do add up.
Great. Yeah, thanks. It's interesting. It'll be interesting to learn exactly why some of these students aren't taking them. But yeah, something to think about.
All right, thank you. So my next slide, it really goes along with what a lot of you were talking about today. I have it as participation and positivity on AP and MCAS, but it also has to do with respect and civility. We need to make sure that we are communicating and messaging positively about our students engaging in these two things that inform rankings, and they inform our school district and school labels from the state. The same way that we were just talking about basketball and wow, those football games this year with everybody in the t-shirts, and if we could bring that same energy and community support to when our students show off their academic achievement, we really will make sure that we are getting data that showcases the best of what our students can do. If there's a feeling of apathy or anxiety towards either of these or any of these experiences, then we really don't know what our students and our schools can do. So my last slide are some specific efforts that we are taking in Scituate Public Schools, or we have taken, to make sure that we are addressing some of those barriers to academic achievement. So the first thing I have, and I think I've mentioned this before, we had a training in accountability elements and tools for the principals, department chairs, and our data manager. So it's really important that everyone understand the elements, because we want the data to reflect student achievement and not clerical work, or not to reflect our an error in reporting or something to that effect. We also want to make sure we're having conversations about things that we may not know or the community may not know affects our scores. So a common misperception everywhere is that in elementary and middle school, parents or students can quote unquote opt out. That is true. A parent can say, I don't want my child taking MCAS, for example, but that does not mean that score counts for our district as any sort of waived element. That is a 0. That counts as someone who did not participate in that exam. So that's something that the details of all of those accountability elements, whether it's graduation rate, attendance, all of those things in addition to straight up academic achievement, we need to look at those together, and we started that this year. The second thing is the technology department. I know you have heard us talk about the increased access to Chromebooks, but there absolutely in the past have been logistic struggles so that every student gets a Chromebook. What the technology department, who they are working directly with principals to make sure that we have more of a seamless implementation, they were literally carting Chromebooks from building to building to run the MCAS. So to me, that's like having a basketball game, but you don't give people the basketball until right before the game. That doesn't make sense. So this year with the expanded access to Chromebooks, those types of obstacles are going to be limited. And when we don't have logistic issues, Staff anxiety will be lessened, and if staff anxiety is lessened, then student anxiety is lessened, and we'll feel more like we're just ready to show what we know. In the winter, this was our last professional development day, actually, the February one. All staff and faculty were trained in the administration and logistics of their particular building for MCAS by the building principal. Some of the feedback that we got from the staff members, they appreciated it happening so early. They appreciated being able to talk about working as a team to get this done. I want to give a sailor shout out to Ryan Beatty. You would think he took everyone to Disney World. The absolute positivity that those teachers felt, he really made sure it was clear in the feedback that people felt like we're in this together as a team, and we're going to do it. So it was wonderful to read, and that happened at all the buildings. And again, Mass Insight, this is new for our district. Our students and teachers can participate in Saturday sessions, professional development and experiences to enhance our performance directly from people who are College Board trained. You've heard about the AP mock exams over and over. All of our AP teachers in science, math, and English have mentors. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, there was a mention of some of the demonstration lessons that connected in the English class with our Mass Insight partner. And that implementation team, this is only a fraction of what's happening there. And that Mass Insight implementation team is led by Dr. McGuire. And they are trying to establish a system of positivity and recruitment in the same way that we would for athletics. So I want to commend them on their work with that. Let me look at my notes to see if I have. All right, so the last thing that I'd like to leave you with is, again, I would ask that our community and our school committee promote that our staff and our students go into this season, if you will, in the same way that we would promote our basketball or football team. We want to help everyone, staff, students, feel comfortable and be the best version of themselves. And some parents, you might say, well, at home, what can I do? What does that look like? What does positive messaging look like at home? So I can give you a couple of examples. We want to celebrate growth and having the grit to struggle. Welcome feedback from teachers. Welcome, if you get a low grade, welcome it. It's an opportunity, it's not failure, it's an opportunity for growth. And we have to change how we look at things so that we always feel like every experience is an opportunity for growth. We want to make sure that we never punish with reading. Hey, that you don't get to use your iPad and now you have to read a chapter. We never want to punish with academic experiences. We want academic experiences to be positive. We want students to love reading and love school. So along with that, be aware of the unintentional messages that we send our children. So if we say, look, I know you hate math, but we have to, or I know you hate homework, but we have to, those kinds of things are giving permission to hate homework or hate math. So we have to say things like, I know math is your favorite thing. We're going to fall in love with it. Let's do this, mathlete. We have to make sure that we are all in this together and promoting that our students take this experience in a positive, relaxed, and motivated manner so that we can get the data that shows us what our students really can do. And that is all I have for my slides. But if you have any questions, I'd love to answer some if you have any.
So go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, before you go, I was going to say thank you for putting this together, because this is the type of thing that, the more information we can put out there to the community on not only what we're doing behind the scenes. I mean, that last slide to me was extremely powerful in terms of all the tools we're giving our students to succeed. And you're right. I mean, maybe, one test goes poorly, but we're giving them all of the tools to be able to go out and succeed the next time. That, that's really what's going to carry on and really help our students. So thank you for sharing, not only the hard work that's going on by all the staff, but, the opportunities we're giving our students not just in the classroom, going to an AP class, but being able to be prepared, as they get ready for a test if they choose to take one.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'd also like to thank Nicole Brandolini, who took, I want to say, at least an hour and a half or more to personally call me and have a conversation, to learn and share feedback. And it was so helpful. And it was really her idea that I put this together. So thank you, Nicole, because I do think it was useful. And I appreciate you reaching out so we can make those connections and support everybody together.
Thanks, Heidi. It was good. And, an hour and a half for me was good. Sometimes I need to be told enough talking. But it was helpful as a parent, I think. Everybody's so busy, and like we said, all these things are flowing fast and furious now, and there's clubs and there's activities and there's sports and there's homework and there's all the things, and it's like go, go, go. But you're right, like we sit here and I have a son sitting across from me right now who is doing something academic, and he's listening. And I think hearing those positive messages, like, we can do hard things, like, okay, we're going to go to the MCAS now. Try your hardest, do your best, like put your best foot forward. We can help you. We can always improve. Trying to turn kind of this dark, negative sort of test into an opportunity is only going to benefit us all.
Absolutely. We don't want anyone to feel scared. We don't want teachers to feel like this test means people are coming with torches and pitchforks. We don't want students to feel like this is defining for them. We want them to feel like it's just another way that they show what they know. And we want them to feel good about having an opportunity to grow.
So
Yeah,
sure. No, I also appreciate, you're always bringing great information and sort of, educating us on some of the metrics. So I really appreciate that. I'm curious about the sports metaphor. I think it's an interesting one to consider. And, just to put out there, I think one of the reasons it's pretty easy for us to celebrate sports is, first of all, Scituate has great sports. So let's just say that. Secondly, the success metrics for sports is clear, right? Whether it's golf or basketball or swimming or gymnastics, like we understand what small victories look like, big victories look like. Whereas when I go and look at the AP, I try really hard to understand the Scituate metrics on AP tests, and I'm still trying to understand what they mean. And so I think as we continue to have these conversations, Mr. Driscoll, it would be great for us to think about, how do we tell these stories? How do we translate these small celebrations from the AP statistics that you're sharing, right? Because I'm not sure if the increase in AP taking is enrollments, is it success, right? There's so many variables behind these that I think through your guidance, it would help me a lot, and I'm sure others, to hear more examples of these stories and what should I be noticing from year to year, so that we can be more positive and celebrate. Because I'm all for the positive, but just need to better understand, I know what a basketball victory looks like, but I'm not clear yet on what, the AP story is for Scituate in terms of a victory.
There are two metrics for AP. Number one, increased access. That means more students taking exams. Hopefully, more students taking classes as well. The other thing that we will look at is the students getting 3s or better. Those are the two things that we will look at year to year. There is not another story. That's success in AP. Expanded access, increased test taking, and additional 3s or better. 3 is a qualifying score. So that's what we'll be looking for. Might there be highlights later? Wow, we increased 5s by this many, or, but as far as parents go, really you need to look at and support your individual student. So knowing, okay, this is how many percentage wise, that's wonderful to know for the district. But when it comes to working together as a community, what you do with your individual child is what will inform what happens as a district. So we're open to having conversations with any parent who wants to know more ways to support their individual child. So I know, going back to Donna's example, those literacy specialists and math specialists who work with students who need targeted interventions, those parents are connected to what their students specifically need, what happens at school, their progress monitored. Those important elements, have conversations with your classroom teacher, have conversations with the specialists, have conversations at the classroom level to make sure we understand what those experiences are by the student. So that way we can eliminate barriers, and the more barriers we eliminate for individual students, the higher success we'll have long-term for the district. I hope that's not too long-winded. I get all excited because I know there's so much potential here, but we have to make sure we are taking it slowly and being thoughtful, because I'd hate to think we are judging all of Scituate by, okay, everybody got stressed because we got Chromebooks the day before because we didn't have any. We have to eliminate those barriers. That should not be an issue. And I'm happy that we're having conversations about things like that so we can make sure that this is just a comfortable and positive experience and it's not a daunting task.
Any other questions?
I just have a comment, and thank you, Heidi, for all that, all that information. And I'd like to also add that, I think one thing, yeah, we have to have, the access to the classes, but there's, we're teaching human beings, so not robots. So, as much as, we'd like to give them all the same information, have them all spit it out and all get a 5. That's not really possible. Like, everybody has their own story, and all these students, they're individuals. So one might get a 5, and that's great. But if another student gets a 3 or 4, like, that might be a huge success for that student. So I think it's important to remember that.
Janice, you're exactly right. And that's why I mentioned during my presentation that with increased access and more students taking this, it isn't going to look like a lockout district where we only let the kids who we think will do the best. So thank you for bringing that up. I really appreciate it.
I think, Heidi, thanks so much I think it's great each meeting that you come to provide us more, information and data that we just didn't really have access to prior. So thank you for doing that. I'm not really sure. I think this kind of brings together Superintendent Burkett and your discussions here or comments are that we do need to celebrate our students, and kind of to dovetail a little bit off what Dr. Burkowski said is we know what an athletic win looks like, and we celebrate them. We do. But we don't often celebrate the academic or other achievements. And I think that we need to promote our students and their successes, like I think we did this weekend to some degree. But only if you had a student that was part of that, are you really aware that that's going on? I don't think the general public was really aware of it, and there's probably some great stories that came out of it. Additionally, I guess to that point, we have 2 student reps that come to most of our meetings. We have some amazing successes by those 2 students, and we never have been informed of that. So I think that it's important. I only know because I probed them and asked them, or one of them, what their plans were, and I had no idea. But one of our student reps is going to Harvard, and no one really knows that. So I think it's a success. And I think that if we can continue to, to probe and celebrate everything that our students are achieving, is just going to go a long way towards our goal of collaboration and building a culture of success. So I just wanted to mention those things.
Yeah, Peter, I think it's a great point. And I mean, really, it's the excitement at the top, the administration level, and as that feeds down to our students, out to our families, into our community, hopefully we start seeing those successes, not just on the athletic field, but also the band event that happened this past weekend, DECA, some of the other trips that our students are able to take their academic base and not just athletic base, and it's really going to, hopefully shine throughout the community, and that I see that and share that, as well as, just what happens on the athletic field. But thank you, Ms. Driscoll. It was a great and very powerful presentation as we get into this testing season. So thank you for sharing that with us tonight.
My pleasure.
So next on the agenda is our one opportunity for public comment If people want to raise their hand, I can ask them to unmute. And as I ask you to unmute, if you can just state your name and either address or school affiliation for the record would be appreciated. The first person is Tom Esch.
Yeah, hi. Tom Esch. We have a third grader at Cushing. I want to comment primarily on things having to do with Cushing, but I just want to say that I really enjoyed Ms. Driscoll's comments. Speaking as a former admission officer earlier in my life who worked for 6 years at 2 highly selective institutions, I think you're spot on in terms of your take on AP testing, that while it's incredibly important to know what goes on at the 4 and 5 level, it's also important, I think, not to close off access. But I've also been out of that game for a while, so I will leave it to others more current to talk about that. But I think you're on the right track. What I really wanted to comment on was Mrs. Moffat's comments with respect to the state of Cushing. First, I want to applaud Mrs. Dewberry's work with the math lab. The SEA program after school at Cushing was fantastic. Our son loved it. He's considering getting on board as a helper with the second graders. I thought that was awesome. It was great for him and we loved it. That said, it would be great to see maybe some broader thinking around SEA with respect to maybe the humanities and social sciences. We've sort of said more than once, it would be great to see a student newspaper at Cushing. If I'm not mistaken, there's one at Hatherley. So maybe that's something that could be baked into SEA planning moving forward. Or maybe a debate club or a junior model UN or a junior history bowl, or, you can think of any number of things in the SEA model that might work well for kids and draw some more students in. So I guess most fundamentally applauding Mrs. Dewberry, but also wanted to point those things out too. And I hope that they can be taken into consideration moving forward. That's all.
Thank you, Mr. Esch, for your kind comments and the suggestions. Next is Jennifer O'Neill.
I'll ask Miss O'Neill to unmute herself. Miss O'Neill, if you so wish to speak, you can right now. Mr. Long, she may have stepped away.
Yeah, I tried to ask her to unmute, so come back to her. Next up is Ms. Withrow.
Hi, Laurie Withrow, 62 Ann Vinyl Road. I just had a quick comment about the earlier discussion on the French trip and how that also is a great way to look at academic excellence. My daughter was able to do the Spanish exchange. We had someone from Spain through Scituate High School stay at our house. She also went to Spain and now she's studying abroad for a semester in Spain in college. So I know it's been brought up a few times about the academic excellence, but I also love how it's not just your grades, but it's also your experiences that can give you that academic excellence. And if she didn't have that experience at Scituate High School, she might not be studying in Europe right now. So I love continuing to have those exchange programs and trips to the other country. And I would actually love to see foreign language even offered at a younger grades than at Gates. So something to think about. Thank you.
Thanks, Laurie. Next is Kurt Gunther.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, Kurt, I have 3 kids, Scituate schools in Jenkins, Gates, and high school. I live on Tickner Place. I just want to say I second, oh, you want me to start my video?
You're fine either way.
Okay. I just want to say I look forward to talking with Superintendent Burkhead tomorrow. I hope other parents that are and guardians that are listening tonight do come out. He has asked people to come out who do want to engage in feedback. And I just want to say I appreciate his time in doing this. I also wanted to say I met Nicole Brandolini the other night at a Little League fundraiser. Had a great conversation with her. She's not very good at bingo, but she did help raise a lot of money. And I also wanted to put this out here on the forum. Myself and other parents and guardians have talked about a school committee candidates forum for the current candidates who are running, including the ones that are on the committee now, and the other ones that who have submitted their name and are securing names for their nomination form. So it would be 4 people on this forum. I hope to have other parents help me organize it. I'd like to have it in the auditorium. It will be open to parents in the auditorium. There would be some preset questions in certain subjects so the candidates can prepare, but it would be a way, much like Superintendent Burkhead is doing with these coffee seaside chats. It will be a way to get some questions out to the candidates, get their straight answers, and get some engagement with parents who might have other questions. So I just wanted to put that out there. I hope to have it at the end of April. And I hope all the candidates will participate if we can get it organized. Thank you for your time.
And Mr. Gunther, I know they didn't do it last year because of COVID, but I believe the Chamber of Commerce has done that type of forum in the past. So I would recommend reaching out to them to see if they're doing it as well, just so that you can coordinate.
Thank you. Yeah, someone has advised me on that. Thank you. Jen O'Neill, I'll try you again.
Mr. Long, it does seem as though Ms. O'Neill may be having some issues audio-wise.
All right, so move on to Paul Scott.
Thank you, Chairman. I wasn't planning to speak tonight, but hearing another great presentation from the Assistant Superintendent about, data and expanding access. And, I like to think about we need to be successful. We need high numbers, but, hearing her explain that, look, if you open it up to more kids are taking the tests, the scores are obviously going to drop. You don't want just the 5s taking the tests. And to me, that is perfectly acceptable. And in fact, exactly what we should be doing. Hopefully year after year. And if the average is 3.4, then we get to 3.7 and we get to 4.0 and we raise the number of kids taking the class and taking the test. But I was also struck by her discussion about positivity and how we talk to kids, all of us, parents, teachers, school committee members, principals, administrators, everybody else. And I heard a student say to me that her teacher referred to MCAS as MCRAP. And again, it may be a throwaway line, but kids take that and it gets absolved by them and they start looking at something in a negative light. And testing is always going to be nerve-wracking. It's never going to be an overly pleasant experience, but let's make it as positive as we possibly can. And as pleasant, as exciting. It's an opportunity to succeed, not to fail. And I don't want to throw anybody under the bus, but when we've got a school committee member saying during a school committee meeting that she's hated MCAS since it came out, that's the type of negativity that's not going to help us succeed. So I would stress to everyone from the top down that focusing on academic excellence, making academic success a positive thing, and working on all the other factors as well. But we need to focus on academic excellence. I look forward to the superintendent's detail and definition of what that is, but let's make academic success a positive thing, not a negative. And that's my comment for tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Scott. And
I
sharing
don't
that
know, I'm
anecdote
sorry,
about the
Mr. Long,
specific.
if my comments were misconstrued, but if it's me, because I did make MCAS comments, I actually was stating how we need to have a positive outlook on MCAS. And I don't know who Mr. Scott thinks said anything negative on our school committee tonight about MCAS, but personally, my comments were about being positive and bringing that positivity to the table. So I don't know if I was misheard, but I just wanted to clarify that. If it was me, I'm not sure which of us he was referring to, but personally, that is what my comments were about being positive about MCAS.
No, it was not you. I think Janice made this comment a couple of meetings ago, maybe 3 or 4 months ago. So that was
Just wanted to clarify. I totally.
Sure.
Thank you.
Yep. No, and to be honest, see, I don't even like this aspect of it. And Chairman Long, you've told me in the past, let's not talk about a specific committee member, but we live in America. So if somebody makes a comment that you disagree with, this is a perfect example. I don't want to throw out there that, hey, somebody on the committee, because that's clearly not fair to Nicole. If Janice made the comment, if that's what she believes, and so maybe in the future we could have a little bit more of a question and answer back and forth instead of somebody throwing a comment out there and then as my comment, maybe it being misapplied or misconstrued. So I certainly don't want to do that.
No, Nicole, I knew he was talking about me. I've never been a fan of MCAS, that particular way of testing the kids. We definitely should have some way of, making sure that, we're teaching our kids the right subjects. Don't get me wrong on that, but I think there's been a lot of problems with MCAS and there just seems to be problems year after year. So, but no, it was me.
Okay, so seeing no other comments, I'll move on in the agenda. So under the approval of minutes, we have our minutes from the February 17th and February 28th. So there are no questions or corrections from the committee. I'll entertain a motion first for the minutes for February 17th.
I can make that motion. I make a motion to approve the February 17th, 2022 minutes as presented.
Second.
Thank you. Do a roll call vote. Long, yes. Ms. Lindblom,
Yes.
Mr. Gates,
Yes.
Dr. Wachowski,
Yes.
and Ms. Brandolini.
Sorry, I pressed the wrong button. Yes.
Thanks. You're trying to hide from the vote. And then is there a motion for the minutes for February 28th?
I can do that one too. I make a motion to approve the February 28th, 2022 minutes as presented.
Second.
Okay. Long, yes. Mr. Gates,
Yes.
Ms. Lindblom,
Yes.
Ms. Brandolini,
Yes.
and Dr. Wachowski.
Yes.
Thank you all. Under the correspondence, we did get the mask February 2022 update. The only correspondence we received for this meeting. Was there any other business that members of the committee wanted to bring up in this meeting? Okay, seeing none. So some future agenda items that we have. So Wampatuck will be providing their state of the school update at our next meeting. The Gates Middle School will be doing the celebrating student success. Nicole, I'll reach out to you and other members of the committee as well regarding the operating protocols for the committee. And then we'll also vote on the golf donation from that we heard about tonight. So if there's nothing else from the committee, So at this time, we will go into executive session without returning back to public session. So this ends the public session of our meeting. So this time, unless there's anything else in the committee, I'll entertain a motion to enter executive session.
Mike, I can make that motion to make a motion to enter into executive session for reason number 2, because the open session may have a detrimental effect on the negotiating position of the public body and will not return to open session.
Thank you, Peter. Is there a second?
Second.
Roll call vote. Long, yes. Ms. Lindblom?
Yes.
Ms. Brandolini?
Yes.
Dr. Borkowski?
Yes.
And Mr. Gates?
Sorry, yes. Did you hear my motion entirely?
I did. Yep.
All right.
I think we got the whole thing.
All right.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Have a good rest of your night for the 5 people still on.